The crystal spires of Zephyria Prime gleamed like frozen starlight against the purple sky. Princess Lyrelii stood on the highest balcony of the royal tower, her silver hair flowing in the artificial wind generated by the atmosphere processors. Her people, the Zephyrians, were known across the galaxy for their beauty and advanced technology, but today their greatest achievement might also be their doom. The warning sirens echoed through the city as massive shadows fell across the crystal structures. The Korthak Armada had arrived, their black ships blotting out the twin suns. These were the galaxy's most feared warriors, creatures of pure aggression who conquered worlds for sport. They had crushed 17 civilizations in the past year alone, leaving nothing but ash and silence in their wake. Princess, we must evacuate you immediately. General Theron burst into the chamber, his usually calm demeanor shattered. His blue skin had paled to an almost white shade, and his 4 arms trembled as he clutched his energy weapon. The outer defenses have fallen. Our shields won't hold for more than an hour. Lyrelii turned from the window, her violet eyes reflecting a strength that surprised even herself. No, I won't abandon my people. If this is where the Zephyrian dynasty ends, then I'll face it with honor. She touched the crystal pendant at her throat, a relic passed down through generations of rulers. It pulsed with a soft blue light, responding to her emotional state. The ground shook as the first Korthak landing ships breached the planetary shield. Through the transparent walls of the tower, they could see the massive vessels disgorging thousands of warriors. The Korthak stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating that could deflect most energy weapons. Their red eyes burned with the joy of battle, and their clawed hands carried weapons that could slice through reinforced steel like paper. The Emergency Council has a plan, Theron said desperately. We've sent a distress signal across all known frequencies. Perhaps the Galactic Federation will respond, or maybe the Centauri Republic. Lyrelii shook her head sadly. You know they won't come in time. No one has ever successfully defended against a full Korthak invasion. Our people will be enslaved or worse. She watched as Zephyrian civilians fled through the streets below, their graceful forms moving with panic rather than their usual elegant composure. The princess had read the intelligence reports. The Korthak didn't just conquer worlds, they consumed them. They strip-mined planets for resources, enslaved populations for labor, and, worst of all, they had a particular fascination with advanced technology. Zephyria's crystal-based computing systems would be irresistible to them. Another explosion rocked the city. The royal guard burst into the room, their ceremonial armor replaced with combat gear. Princess, the enemy has breached the middle city. They're moving toward the tower. We have maybe 30 minutes before they reach us. Lyrelii closed her eyes and reached out with her mind, using the psychic abilities that all Zephyrian royalty possessed. She could sense the terror of her people, the desperation of her soldiers, and the cold hunger of the approaching Korthak forces. But there was something else, something unexpected at the edge of her awareness. A single ship was approaching the planet, smaller than anything in either fleet. It moved with a strange, erratic pattern that didn't match any known species' flight characteristics. The ship's energy signature was unlike anything in the galactic databases, crude yet effective, powerful yet somehow restrained. General, are you detecting that vessel? She asked, pointing toward a section of space where the unknown ship should be visible. Theron quickly activated his scanner, frowning at the readings. It's human, but that's impossible. Humans are barely spacefaring. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, and they've never ventured this far from their home system. The ship was indeed human, though neither the princess nor her general could have imagined the circumstances that brought it here. Aboard the small vessel, a single occupant prepared for what most would consider a suicide mission. The human had been tracking the Korthak fleet for weeks, following them across star systems, learning their patterns, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the Korthak forces surrounded the royal tower and prepared for their final assault, none of them noticed the small human ship taking position in the asteroid field above the planet. The battle for Zephyria Prime was about to take a turn that would echo through galactic history. Marcus Chun had been a soldier for most of his 35 years. He'd fought in the Mars Colony Wars, survived the Jupiter mining conflicts, and earned more medals than he cared to count. But nothing in his military career had prepared him for this moment. Floating in space above an alien world, preparing to take on an entire armada single-handedly. His ship, the Defiant, was a modified heavy fighter that he'd rebuilt himself using salvaged parts and human ingenuity. Where alien vessels relied on elegant energy systems and sophisticated technology, the Defiant was pure human engineering. Redundant systems, armor plating welded over armor plating, and weapons that could punch holes through asteroids. It wasn't pretty, but it was effective. Marcus had been on a deep space reconnaissance mission when he'd first encountered the Korthak. He'd watched in horror as they decimated a peaceful trading station, killing thousands of innocent beings without mercy. Something in that moment had changed him. He'd dedicated his life to hunting these creatures, learning their weaknesses, and striking back wherever possible. Through his ship's sensors, he watched the elegant Zephyrian city below. The crystal spires reminded him of the ice sculptures his grandmother used to make back on Earth, beautiful and fragile. The Korthak war machines were already swarming through the streets like mechanical locusts, leaving destruction in their wake. Computer run tactical analysis on Korthak fleet composition, he commanded, his voice calm despite the overwhelming odds. Analysis complete. The AI responded in a crisp female voice. Enemy force consists of 1 command ship, 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and approximately 200 fighters. Recommended action, immediate retreat. Marcus smiled grimly. Computer, you've been saying that for 3 years. When have I ever listened to you about retreating? Never, Commander Chun. That is why I continue to suggest it. Below, the Korthak ground forces had reached the outer perimeter of the Royal Tower. Marcus could see the Zephyrian defenders falling back, their elegant energy weapons proving ineffective against Korthak armor. The aliens' natural plating could absorb most directed energy attacks, which was why most species surrendered quickly when faced with a Korthak invasion. But Marcus had learned something that the rest of the galaxy hadn't figured out yet. Korthak armor was designed to disperse energy, but it was vulnerable to kinetic impact. Good old-fashioned bullets and explosives could punch right through their defenses. It was a lesson he'd learned the hard way during his first encounter with them. He activated his communications array and began broadcasting on all Korthak military frequencies. He'd learned their language during his long hunt, though speaking had always left a bitter taste in his mouth. Attention Korthak fleet. This is Commander Marcus Chun of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You are in violation of galactic law and guilty of crimes against sentient species. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response was immediate, harsh laughter echoing across the comm channels. The Korthak commander's voice dripped with contempt. A single human vessel dares to threaten the might of the Korthak armada? You amuse us, little mammal. We will add your skull to our collection after we finish with the Crystal Dwellers. Fair enough, Marcus replied, his finger hovering over the weapon's control. But don't say I didn't warn you. In the royal tower below, Princess Lorelei felt the strange ship's presence growing stronger. There was something different about this being's mind, something fierce and uncompromising that she'd never encountered before. While her people's thoughts flowed like gentle streams, this alien consciousness burned like a forge fire. Princess, General Theron called out, pointing to the tactical display. Something's happening in orbit. One of the Korthak destroyers just exploded. They watched in amazement as Marcus began his attack run. The Defiant dove toward the Korthak fleet like a falcon striking prey, its weapons blazing. But these weren't the elegant energy beams that most species favored. Instead, streams of solid projectiles erupted from the human ship, each round moving at tremendous velocity. The first Korthak destroyer never saw it coming. Marcus had approached from its blind spot, using an asteroid as cover, and unleashed a full salvo of armor-piercing rounds into its reactor core. The ship's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, were useless against the physical projectiles. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant fireball that lit up the space around it. Impossible, Theron whispered. No one fights the Korthak with projectile weapons. It's too primitive, too inefficient. But Marcus was just getting started. He rolled his ship through a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible for most pilots, using the Defiant's superior maneuverability to stay ahead of the Korthak fighters scrambling to intercept him. His next target was a heavy cruiser that had been bombarding the planet's surface. The Korthak ship turned to engage, its powerful energy cannons tracking the small human vessel. But Marcus had anticipated this. He fired a spread of missiles, not at the cruiser itself, but at the debris field from the destroyed destroyer. The explosions created a cloud of metal fragments that his ship passed through harmlessly, but which played havoc with the Korthak targeting systems. Emerging from the debris cloud like a ghost, Marcus lined up his shot and fired everything he had at the cruiser's weapons array. The kinetic rounds tore through the alien ship's defenses, disabling its main guns and leaving it helpless. A follow-up salvo to the engine section sent the massive vessel spinning out of control. In the space of 5 minutes, a single human had accomplished what entire fleets had failed to do. He had drawn Korthak blood and lived to tell about it. The armada that had seemed unstoppable was suddenly unsure of itself, their commanders barking orders in confusion as they tried to comprehend how a primitive species could pose such a threat. Princess Lyralii felt her hope rekindling as she watched the impossible battle unfold above her world. The Korthak command ship Warbringer hung in space like a metallic mountain, its hull bristling with weapons designed to crack planets. Admiral Vex Thar stood on the bridge, his scarred face twisted with rage as he watched the tactical display. 2 of his ships had been destroyed or disabled by a single enemy vessel, and his reputation was crumbling with each passing second. "How is this possible?" he roared, his claws scraping against the command console. "The humans are barely more advanced than the primitive species we conquered in the Outer Rim. Their weapons should be useless against our armor." His tactical officer, a younger Korthak named Zekmar, hesitated before responding. "Admiral, the human vessel is using projectile weapons. Physical rounds at our shields cannot deflect. Our armor plating is effective against energy weapons, but vulnerable to kinetic impact." Vexthar's red eyes blazed with fury. "Then adapt. All ships switch to evasive patterns. Launch every fighter we have. I want that human ship reduced to scrap metal." In space around the Warbringer, the Korthak fleet began to reorganize. Dozens of fighter craft swarmed toward Marcus's position like angry hornets. Their smaller size and greater numbers should have overwhelmed any single opponent, but the human pilot had advantages they couldn't comprehend. Marcus gripped his controls as the enemy fighters closed in. His ship's computer was already calculating intercept courses and target priorities, but he ignored most of the data. Human intuition and reflexes had gotten him this far, and he trusted his instincts more than any machine. "Come on then," he muttered, rolling the Defiant into a steep dive toward the planet's atmosphere. "Let's see how you handle a little gravity." The Korthak fighters followed, their pilots confident in their superior numbers. But as they entered the upper atmosphere, Marcus executed a maneuver that defied all conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of trying to outrun his pursuers, he killed his engines and let the planet's gravity pull him into a controlled fall. The Korthak pilots, trained for combat in the vacuum of space, struggled to adapt to atmospheric flight. Their heavy fighters were designed for raw power, not the delicate balance needed for aerial maneuvering. Several collided with each other as they tried to follow Marcus's impossible trajectory. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Princess Lyralii watched the aerial battle unfold above her city. The human ship moved through the sky like a dancer, weaving between enemy fire with impossible grace. But she could sense something else through her psychic abilities. The pilot's mind was focused entirely on protecting her world and her people, even though he had never met them. "Who is this human?" she wondered aloud. "Why would he risk everything for strangers?" General Theron had been monitoring human communications traffic. According to our intelligence files, humans have a concept they call heroism. They believe in protecting those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of personal cost. It's considered one of their primary cultural values. The princess felt a chill of understanding. This warrior wasn't fighting for glory or conquest. He was fighting because it was right, because innocent beings were in danger. It was a mindset so foreign to most galactic species that few could comprehend it. Above them, Marcus completed his atmospheric maneuvers and rocketed back toward space, but not before accomplishing his real objective: During his dive, he had fired a series of specially designed penetrator rounds at the Korthak landing ships on the planet's surface. The rounds punched through their hulls and detonated inside, destroying several transports and scattering the ground forces. But the humans' greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Warbringer had moved into position, its massive guns tracking his ship. Admiral Vex are intended to end this humiliation personally. Target the human vessel, the Admiral commanded. Maximum power. I want nothing left but atoms. The command ship's main cannon began to charge, energy levels building to devastating proportions. Marcus saw the threat on his sensors and knew he had only seconds to act. The Defiant was fast, but not fast enough to outrun a directed energy beam of that magnitude. Instead of fleeing, Marcus did something that shocked every observer. He flew directly toward the Warbringer, accelerating to maximum velocity. The Korthak gunners, expecting him to run, hesitated for a crucial moment. By the time they fired, he was already past the optimal targeting solution. The massive energy beam missed the Defiant by mere meters, its passage scorching the hull paint but leaving the ship intact. Marcus used his momentum to slingshot around the command ship's superstructure, staying so close to the hull that the larger vessel's own weapons couldn't target him without risking damage to itself. Clever little mammal, Vexthar grudgingly admitted, but you cannot hide behind our hull forever. Marcus had no intention of hiding. As he completed his orbit around the Warbringer, he unleashed every missile in his arsenal at point-blank range. The warheads, designed for ship-to-ship combat, carried special armor-piercing tips that could penetrate even Korthak hull plating. The explosions rippled across the command ship's surface, tearing holes in its armor and exposing critical systems. Atmosphere vented into space as emergency bulkheads sealed off damaged sections. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vexthar felt something he had never experienced before: fear. But Marcus's desperate gambit came at a cost. The proximity of his own explosions had damaged the Defiant's engines, and enemy fighters were closing in from all directions. His ship limped through space, badly wounded but still fighting. In the royal tower below, Princess Lyralii made a decision that would change the course of the battle. She reached out with her psychic abilities, not to the human ship, but to the crystal network that powered her city. If she could overload the main generator, the resulting energy pulse might disable the Korthak fleet's electronics. It would also likely kill her in the process, but she had accepted that fate the moment the invasion began. At least this way, her death might mean something. Princess Lyralii placed her hands on the crystal control matrix, feeling the immense power flowing through the network beneath her city. The crystals hummed with energy, their harmonic frequencies creating a song that only she could hear. If she could synchronize with their resonance and force an overload, the resulting electromagnetic pulse would cripple every ship in orbit. But the process would require her to channel energy levels that no Zephyrian had ever survived. The crystal pendant at her throat grew hot against her skin, warning her of the danger. She closed her eyes and began the mental preparations for what would likely be her final act. Princess, no. General Theron realized what she was planning. The energy feedback will kill you instantly. There has to be another way. There is no other way, she replied softly, her consciousness already beginning to merge with the crystal network. My people will live, even if I cannot. High above the planet, Marcus felt his ship shuddering as the damaged engines began to fail. Korthak fighters swarmed around him like metallic vultures, their energy weapons chipping away at his remaining armor. The Defiant had taken too much punishment. He could feel her dying around him. But through his ship's sensors, he detected something unexpected, a massive energy buildup on the planet's surface centered on the Crystal City. The readings were off the charts, far beyond anything that should be possible for a civilization at Zephiria's technological level. Computer analyzed that energy signature. What are they doing down there? Unknown technology, Commander. Energy levels approaching critical thresholds. Estimated time to catastrophic overload. 3 minutes, 17 seconds. Marcus understood immediately. The princess was going to sacrifice herself to save her people. He'd seen similar acts of heroism before, warriors who threw themselves on grenades to save their comrades. But this was on a planetary scale, and if he was right about the energy levels involved, the explosion might damage his ship as well. He could escape. His engines still had enough power to reach minimum safe distance. But that would mean abandoning the princess to her fate, and Marcus had never left anyone behind in his life. New plan, he announced to his ship's computer. Plot an intercept course for the Royal Tower. Maximum velocity. Commander, that trajectory will take you directly through the Korthak fleet. The probability of survival is less than 0.01%. I've beaten worse odds, Marcus replied, pushing his engines to their limits despite their damaged condition. Besides, somebody's got to stop that princess from doing something stupid. The Defiant screamed through space, diving toward the planet like a falling star. Korthak fighters pursued, their weapons blazing, but Marcus had one advantage they couldn't match. He was completely unpredictable. Where alien combat doctrine emphasized formation flying and coordinated attacks, human tactics relied on improvisation and individual initiative. He rolled through a gap between two destroyers, using their own bulk to shield him from enemy fire. When a cruiser moved to intercept, he fired his remaining missiles not at the ship, but at its sensor array, blinding it at the crucial moment. His path to the planet's surface cleared for just long enough to begin atmospheric entry. The Defiant's hull began to glow as it hit the atmosphere at dangerous speed. Warning lights flashed throughout the cockpit, but Marcus ignored them all. He had maybe 2 minutes before the princess completed her overload sequence, and he wasn't going to waste a single second. In the Royal Tower, Lyralii felt the crystal network responding to her commands. Power flowed through her body like liquid fire, threatening to burn her alive from within. Her silver hair began to float as static electricity built up around her, and her violet eyes blazed with reflected energy. "The human ship," Theron called out urgently. "It's coming directly toward us." Why would he fly into certain death? Through her connection to the crystals, Lyralii sensed the approaching vessel and its pilot's mind. What she found there amazed her. Absolute determination mixed with a protective instinct so strong it bordered on the supernatural. This human was willing to die to save someone he'd never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. "He's coming to stop me," she realized. "He knows what I'm planning, and he won't let me sacrifice myself." The building energy was becoming painful now, threatening to tear her apart at the molecular level. But she could also feel the Korthak ships above, their systems vulnerable to the electromagnetic pulse she was preparing. A few more seconds, and she could disable their entire fleet. Marcus brought the Defiant down through the city's skyline, weaving between crystal spires with millimeters to spare. Korthak ground forces fired at him from below, but he was moving too fast for their weapons to track. The Royal Tower loomed ahead, its upper levels glowing with barely contained energy. He activated his ship's external communications and broadcast directly to the tower. "Princess Lyralii, this is Commander Marcus Chun of Earth. I'm ordering you to abort your overload sequence immediately." That's a direct command from someone who outranks you in the business of staying alive. The princess heard his words and felt a moment of confusion. No one had ever spoken to her with such casual authority before. But she could also sense the genuine concern in his voice, the same protective instinct that had driven him to fight an entire armada single-handed. "Commander Chun," she replied, her voice strained by the energy flowing through her. "I must complete this. It's the only way to save my people." "Like hell it is," Marcus shot back, bringing his ship into a hover next to the tower's balcony. The Defiant's hull was still glowing from atmospheric entry, and sparks flew from damaged systems. "I've got a better idea, but it requires both of us working together. Trust me, Princess. I've never lost anyone I was trying to protect, and I'm not starting with you." As he spoke, Korthak fighters screamed through the atmosphere toward them, their weapons already charging for a final devastating attack. The tower's energy readings were approaching critical levels, and time was running out for everyone involved. But Marcus Chun had one more impossible plan up his sleeve, something so audacious that it might just work. "Princess, can you redirect that energy instead of releasing it as a pulse?" Marcus shouted over the comm as Korthak fighters dove toward the tower. "Channel it through your city's transmitter array." Lyralii felt the crystal network burning through her consciousness, but she managed to understand his plan. Yes, but what good will that do? The transmitters aren't weapons. They are now, Marcus replied grimly, adjusting his ship's position. Every Korthak ship is equipped with communication receivers. If you can overload those receivers with a focused energy beam, it'll fry their internal systems from the inside out. But you'll need a targeting solution for each ship simultaneously. Impossible, General Theron protested. No single being could calculate targeting data for an entire fleet. Maybe not a single Zephyrian, Marcus said, opening his ship's main hatch. But humans and Zephyrians working together? That might just do the trick. Princess, I'm coming to you. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as either the bravest or most insane action ever recorded. Marcus Chun, his ship crippled and under direct enemy fire, leaped from his cockpit onto the tower's balcony. Behind him, the Defiant's autopilot system began an evasive pattern, drawing Korthak fire away from the tower. Princess Lyralii saw the human warrior for the first time as he rushed through the chamber doors. He was shorter than she expected, built more for endurance than elegance, with scars that spoke of countless battles. His dark hair was streaked with gray, and his brown eyes held an intensity she'd never seen before. But what struck her most was the complete absence of fear in his mind, replaced by an absolute determination to succeed. "How do we do this?" she asked, her voice tight with strain as energy continued to build around her. Marcus pulled a data pad from his belt and connected it to the crystal matrix through an adapter cable. "My ship's computer has targeting solutions for every Korthak vessel in orbit. I'm going to upload that data to your crystal network. When I give the signal, you release all that stored energy through the transmitter array, but instead of general pulse, you focus it into precise beams at each target. The energy required will kill us both," Lyralii warned, though she was already beginning to see how the plan might work. "Maybe," Marcus admitted, placing his hands on the crystal matrix next to hers. "But it'll definitely kill them, and sometimes that's enough." The moment their minds connected through the crystal network, both human and Zephyrian gasped in surprise. Marcus felt the princess's consciousness like a river of starlight, graceful and flowing. Lyralii experienced the human's thoughts as a forged fire, burning with purpose and unbreakable will. Together, they created something neither species could achieve alone. A perfect fusion of intuition and analysis, emotion and logic, grace and determination. Outside the tower, Korthak fighters screamed past the windows, their weapons blazing. Admiral Vex Thar had decided to destroy the Crystal City entirely rather than risk whatever the defenders were planning. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, shattering crystal spires and sending shockwaves through the city. "Now!" Marcus shouted, his mind merging completely with the princesses as they guided the massive energy discharge. The crystal network erupted with power beyond anything it was designed to handle. But instead of destroying itself in a chaotic explosion, the energy flowed through the transmitter arrays in precisely calculated streams. Dozens of focused beams lanced upward through the atmosphere, each one targeted at a specific Korthak vessel. The beams struck the alien ship's communication arrays with surgical precision, overloading their systems in microseconds. Aboard the Warbringer, Admiral Vex Thar watched in horror as his entire fleet went dark simultaneously. Control systems failed, weapons powered down, and life support began to falter as the energy feedback cascaded through every shipboard network. "Impossible," he whispered as his flagship began to drift powerless through space. How do they know exactly where to strike? The answer was something no Korthak could understand. Two different species working together as one mind, combining their unique strengths to achieve the impossible. Human tactical analysis, merged with Zephyrian intuitive targeting, had created a precision that neither could achieve alone. In the Royal Tower, Marcus and Lyralii collapsed together, their bodies smoking from the energy discharge. But they were alive, and through the crystal matrix, they could sense that the Korthak fleet was completely disabled. The invasion was over. "Did we do it?" Lyralii whispered, her silver hair singed but her violet eyes still bright. Marcus checked his communicator, which was somehow still functioning despite everything they'd been through. Princess, I'm reading 0 active Korthak vessels in orbit. Every ship is dead in space. Through the tower's windows, they could see Korthak fighters falling from the sky like dying birds, their pilots struggling to maintain atmospheric flight without powered systems. The ground forces, cut off from orbital support, were already beginning to retreat to their crippled transports. This isn't possible, General Theron said in amazement. The Korthak have never been defeated in direct combat. How did a single human accomplish what entire fleets could not? Marcus helped the princess to her feet, both of them still weak from their ordeal. I didn't do it alone. Your princess and I did it together. That's what humans call teamwork, and it's probably our greatest strength. Princess Lyralii studied the human warrior with new understanding. You could have escaped. Why did you risk everything for people you'd never met? Marcus smiled, the expression transforming his scarred face. Because that's what we do. Humans don't leave people behind, and we don't let bullies win. It's just who we are. As rescue ships began launching from the planet's surface to recover Korthak survivors, word of the victory spread across the galaxy. For the first time in history, the seemingly invincible Korthak armada had been utterly defeated, and it had been accomplished not by superior technology or overwhelming force, but by two very different species choosing to trust each other completely. The human warrior and the alien princess had proven that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from standing together. It was a lesson that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come, and it all began when Marcus Chin decided that one princess was worth fighting an entire armada to save.